Hey, what's up guys and welcome back to Anime King 2. First of all, go ahead and check out the new series over on Anime King 3. What if Naruto had cosmic energy? Part 1 guys, and enjoy that. But for today I'm going to be giving you part 14 of What if Naruto had a new dream that would change everything. Remember to get this one to 100 likes as usual, share this to all of your friends in your social media platform, and also stay in tune for the rest of the notifications coming your way on Anime King and Anime King 3. And I hope you guys enjoy each and every one of them. All links will be down in the description for you guys to check it out and enjoy. So yeah, without further ado, what do you say we begin this new episode? Start the intro. So, the last time we left off, as Danzo sent his members to come and capture Zana, his group members Fu and 3 others. They didn't have much emotion, so they didn't know when someone was messing with them, as Zana ended up brutally slaughtering all of them and burning Fu to unrecognizable state. Meanwhile, Naruto had told the group to stay back, while he took on Hidan and Kakazu by himself, as he was, well, toying with them. Because Naruto with his new strength technique was literally running through every attack as he brutally beat Hidan, even using the man as a shield to get incinerated, but he got sloppy because he was having too much fun, as the others had to jump in. Kakazu stood absolutely no chance because Naruto was already bodying him. One of Naruto clones had flashed away where Hidan went, as when the group then came upon Kakazu, he had no choice but to take them on himself, and they mercilessly beated him without a second thought. As they went back to the village, Tsunade was a bit pissed off for Naruto to tell everyone else to stay out of the battle and face off against the Akatsuki members alone, as despite knowing that they couldn't kill him, he was being too reckless. Yeah, he was kind of. Meanwhile, with the clone that went off, the clone had took Hidan's body. To have an immortal, that was something that interested Naruto. Meanwhile, he went home and he saw the root members, as Danzo is gonna have to die, coming after Zana and pissed Naruto off to no end. A council meeting was called as he was going over finances about the village, as Danzo was about to sit down as Naruto set up perfectly, as there was an explosion that blew Danzo to pieces, as the gore and everything flashed towards the elders, as Naruto had made it specifically that way. But then Danzo reappeared like it was nothing. That shot the hell out of Naruto and the council members. Tsunade had everyone did a full sweep as they tried to find out any evidence of the person that set this trap, but they couldn't find anything. After that, Tsunade wanted to know how Danzo was alive, as he told that it was a clan special secret. She couldn't question him about that if it has to do with his clan, but Danzo knew who set that trap as he glanced towards Naruto. He knew that the boy found out about, well, his root agents. After all, they didn't come back after going after Zana. He never thought that she would be able to handle 4 root agents, but he underestimated her. The Sharingan on his left arm had to be sealed away because they stopped chakra if they were not, so he had to use Shisui's Sharingan to use the ability to rewrite things. As he reappeared, as he cursed because he wastes that eye, he never wanted to use it. As now he was furious. He would have to get the Uzumaki another way though, because this way didn't work out at all. So yeah guys, was basically as we left off. You guys can switch across the place and check it out for yourself. So what do you say begin this new episode? The Sandaime appeared to gone deep within the ocean. We will be unable to retrieve it by any normal means, Obito said, as he was now acting as Madara. After all, the only one that was there was Pain, him, Konan, and Zetsu. There was no point keeping up the Tobi charade. Well, him being Madara was also a charade, but still, Pain and Konan didn't know that. Then what do you propose we do? All of our plans hench on gathering all the 9 bijus, said Pain. We will find a way to deal with the Sandaime at a later time. For now, we will focus on the others. Honestly, he didn't really know how he was going to tackle that one, but he would think of something. Zetsu, what of Hidan, said Pain. The useless fools in Konoha know nothing about him, but we did sense his chakra in the village, being carried around by the Kyuubi Jinchuriki, which is why we think he's being held captive by him. We can't enter his home though. It is covered in protective seals that prevent entry. Everyone thought that information over. It was strange for him to keep Hidan prisoner instead of handing him over to the IT department. It started to look like the Kyuubi Jinchuriki had a hidden agenda of his own. I will go and extract him. He can still be useful, said Madara. What for? Just let him rot. It's not like we ever told him anything important, said Black Zetsu. There are only 6 of us left. Having Hidan back would make the ceiling go faster if nothing else, said Madara. Time skip. Good afternoon, Hidan. How are you doing today? Hidan glared, as he couldn't talk at the moment, seeing that his mouth was gagged. He's been trapped to this table for the past 2 weeks. He was unable to curse at this bastard who was using him for experimental fuinjutsu and other things. The only reason he knew it was 2 weeks is because the blonde had told him. I gave that sight of yours to my apprentice. She was very happy with it, said Naruto. Hidan's eyes bulged as his face turned red as he screamed profanity, but he couldn't be heard clearly because of the gag. Naruto shocked at the reaction. He knew it would be funny. Well, enough small talk. It is time for more experiments. He already found 7 things of note about Hidan. He didn't need to eat or drink to stay alive. And the strange thing, he didn't have to go to the bathroom either. That was the only reason why the metal slab that he was chained to wasn't, well, soil with things that were unmentionable. Naruto was grateful for that. And plus lacking food of water, wasn't really doing anything at all. Something else must be supplying Hidan's body with energy that made him move around and do what he does. He felt like it was safe to assume that Hidan didn't age for that same reason. It made Naruto wonder if he didn't need to breathe either. Testing that, in fact he didn't need to breathe, but it made him loopy. That was rather inconclusive for Naruto now. Strangely enough, he didn't really sleep either, nor was he good at staying unconscious. Naruto wasn't sure if this was, well, because of the Jashin, psychotic episodes, or if he was just naturally crazy. He had tried to ask him about these things, but Hidan was entirely uncooperative. And he was also clueless. Apparently, he didn't care why he was immortal, as long as he get to kill people. He has showed the desire to die once or twice. That was quite strange given his behavior. Today, we're going to be discovering whether or not you're capable of regenerating lost body parts. As Naruto raised Kusanagi into the air, before Hidan could scream, Naruto sliced his left arm off right at the wrist. Oh, stop your whine, you big baby. If you want to be immortal and piss off everyone you meet, you should make sure you have the biggest teeth and sharpest claws. Honestly, I'm pretty surprised at Orochimaru having have you strapped down somewhere other than me. But his loss, my gain. As Naruto saw the limb was still moving, and the hand was walking like some junk spider. No, that's freaky. There is no way that you should be able to move that hand when it's not connected to your central nervous system. But I suppose it's why Shikamaru said that you even talk, with your head even cut off. That's even stranger, by the way. How the hell can you even talk if you can't draw in any air from your lungs? As Naruto looked at the wound, he was disappointed there was no regeneration going on, but there was little bleeding. You think that getting your hand chopped off would cause you to gush blood, worse than Joy if he ever saw Snazzy boobs. But he done just drop a few drop of blood, and then nothing more. As the hand was still moving around, like it was connected to Hidan, Naruto got an idea. Placing the hand back to the stump, Hidan was able to reattach severed body parts, but it was really slow doing. This was useful to know, but not what Naruto was after, so he chopped the hand off once again, as he placed a paralyzation seal on it, and another seal that was designed to disintegrate objects into their base component. As Naruto then saw it, Hidan's stump was regenerating. It was really slow, and by the way he was grunting, it seemed like it was really painful as well. Apparently Hidan could regenerate, as long as the original body part was completely destroyed. Weird. Naruto decided to give Hidan some chakra to see if the regeneration would speed up. The man had small amount of chakra, really small. That would explain the, well, non-ninjutsu techniques. But despite his small chakra reserves, the man never ran out of chakra, and that didn't make any sense at all. It was like he was an Edo Tensei construct, without actually being an Edo Tensei construct. The missing hand regenerated rapidly after Naruto inserted his chakra, and it was perfectly back and fine. Naruto sat down deep in thought while his sweating Hidan recovered from the extraordinary painful experiment. Alright, let's review what we learned so far, Naruto thought. Hidan doesn't need any external fluid to keep his body function, being food, water, or oxygen, even though he has a heartbeat and a fully functional digestive system. He did not need to sleep, showing that his brain did not need a recharging period. He could survive even if he was cut to pieces. He can control his limbs even if he gets severed from his body, and he doesn't bleed as much. He has a healing factor, but it only works if his body is in one piece. He could regenerate lost body parts, but only if they were truly gone. His chakra supply seemed to be infinite, but his effective ability to use it was quite pathetic due to his poorly developed chakra coils. As he would imagine, Hidan has the chakra coils of a civilian or first genin. More chakra include faster regeneration. He feels pain, but it was only when his chakra network was pronounced, and he had to regenerate new limbs. So with all of that, Naruto could tell that Hidan immortality was of supernatural and not a medical origin. Now all he needed was to figure out how Hidan could stay alive, even if he was in pieces. He also needed to look into the cult of Jashin to see if those nutcases had any useful information. He didn't believe that Jashin was a god, but that didn't mean he couldn't be something else. Maybe Zana would know something about that. It was certainly worth asking. Last on his due list was to disintegrate Hidan's head and see what happened. If he somewhat survived that, then complete body disintegration. Then if he survived that, Naruto wanted to find out how he could get himself some of that. Well, if there was any nasty price tag attached to it. Time skip. Obito made his way down to the basement of Naruto Uzumaki as he was intent to get Hidan out of here. The blonde Jinchuriki had just left the building, so he was just going to go in and grab Hidan and get the hell out of here. No need to give out any hints unnecessary. The Eye of the Moon plan was on track, but things was not going as well as it should be. For one thing, he lost too many members too fast, and the Kyuubi Jinchuriki was a lot stronger than he had thought. Well, the whole situation with the standby had been messed up, as Yagura was easy to place under a genjutsu, whether that was because of the standby or not. After all, the thing was rather lazy, but that Meiteru woman had to go and kill him. Having reformed 2 times after being sealed inside Ren, and then having to reform once again after being sealed inside Yagura, it seemed like the standby had enough, and whatever Orochimaru did with that team of his, the thing went deep within the ocean, just asleep. This was a very big problem. After all, the ocean was so deep, he had no idea how he was going to get it. Maybe he should have left Kiri alone. That way the standby would have still been sealed inside Yagura. Black Zetsu was still pissed off at him for that one, and had been rude and insulting ever since. Well, more rude and pissed off than he used to be. The bearer of Madara's will always believed that anyone except for Madara was a worthless piece of crap. The biggest problem with the plan was the Kyuubi. It was a giant 9-tailed fox. Seeing the others' sightings over the years, yes, the 8 of them, they had been sighting, but the Kyuubi, it always vanished for decades or centuries. This puzzled people for a long time, making them wonder how a 9-tailed fox could just vanish. The real Uchiha Madara was the only person to encounter it and survive, and he would not say anything specific about it. He did warn Obito that the Kyuubi wasn't like the other Bijus, however. It did show intelligence during their brief encounter, and that was a warning. Well, if it was intelligent, it should be able to hide itself better. Fortunately, after reading the tablet, the Sage of Six Paths had charged the Kyuubi to watch over his descendants, the Uchihas and the Senju, so that kind of make its movement predictable. With this in mind, Obito set out with the main plan to start a civil war in the Uchihas. He barely had to do anything. The Uchihas were already going in that area, as they were being isolated by the rest of the village. He just sped things up. Fukaku, being as arrogant and prideful as he is, just needed a demonstration of Kamui and his control over Kira before convincing that the coup was going to go in their way. Fugaku wanted to rule Konoha either as a Hokage or as a man that held the Hokage under his control using his Sharingan. Blinded by his lust for power, Fugaku didn't realize he was being played. The Kyuubi appeared a bit sooner than expected, but everything went as planned. The fourth Hokage devised a seal that was powerful enough to hold the Kyuubi. Obito was quite stunned to see the man summon the dead god to hold the Kyuubi. He just knew that it was going to take forever to extract the Kyuubi from that seal. Years later, the Uchihas were going to enact their coup, but only for them to be betrayed by Itachi himself. Fugaku had seen this and realized how badly he was manipulated. That is the reason why he didn't put up a fight when his son came to kill him. By then he knew that he doomed the Uchiha, and there was no use in fighting anymore. Obito got a stacked pile of Sharingan eyes though. That was a nice side bonus. But enough about that, there was an idiotic berserker, immortal to extract. As he used his Kamui to make his way through the metal door in the basement, as he saw the man strapped on the table by heavy chains, and a gag in his mouth. He donned sign relief as he saw the clothing and the mask, knowing that he was going to be rescued. Getting used as an experiment was not the way he wanted to spend his immortality. This experience has also shown how he needed to get his skills up to snuff, so that he didn't get captured again. The Kyuubi Jinjoki definitely had a point about Orochimaru doing the same thing, and Hidan couldn't muster enough arrogance to say that a Snake Sanin couldn't do it, after being put in this position by the blonde. As Obito faced into stability, he was about to grab Hidan when seals erupted all over on the walls. Immediately, Obito felt his chakra being completely cut off, like it was gone. His Sharingan deactivate. What? As his replacement right arm hung limply in the air, refusing to obey his commands. Whatever these seals did to suppress chakra, they did it so strongly. The chakra required to survive was cut. The replacement arm from Hoshirama's cells, it needed chakra to stay functional, and at the moment it was just hanging there. As it was unable to move, Obito felt panic, like he never felt before. Any thought of saving Hidan was gone, as he just wanted to rush out of this room. He slammed into a barrier, as Obito pressed his hand against it, testing the barrier for weaknesses. He could feel the flicker of chakra in his palm as he pushed against the barrier, which told him that the nullified chakra zone in a very tiny distance in front of the barrier. If he could just push his eye close to the barrier, then maybe he could activate Kamui and get out of this room. Hidan watching confusion as Toby removed his mask and pushed his face up against the barrier, as Hidan felt his chakra being shut off and feel exhausted, as he wondered if that had anything to do with Toby's weird behavior. Either way, he gets that his Akatsuki fellow member had triggered some trap that the Uzumaki had set, and now the Uzumaki was going to have two test subjects. Obito tried to push his right eye against the barrier, but his skull was in the way. He jerked back as a giant door was open, revealing Naruto standing there. "Oh hey there, Toby. I was wondering if you were going to show up," said Naruto as he looked at the man's face and the badly scarred side, and the permanently activated Sharingan in his left eye socket. Given that it was still activated, it must be a transplant. Thanks to all chakra in the room being suppressed, the eye was in a dead state, probably not even granting vision. He was alerted to the seal being activated, and he made his way back, wanting to get a look at his new captive. "What have you done to my chakra?" Obito said, as he was not acting like Toby right now. After all, his mask was off. "Well, I figure you might show up after the way you snatched later, so I prepared some surprises for you just in case." As Naruto knew that idiot Ak was that. Yes, it was just an Ak. The inner seal that you're standing into is a yin-yang base chakra suppressor array. The middle seal is a high-powered chakra barrier, so you can't just walk out on me. And the entire basement is, well, being powered by a space-time manipulation seal. A bit overkill perhaps, but I didn't want to take any chances. As a horrified look was on Obito's face, Akatsuki was aware that the Uzumaki was good with seals, but this was on a level that they didn't ever imagine. Not even Minato Sensei would have been capable of this. Master of Fuin Jutsu on this level was unheard of. When it comes to space-time manipulation and yin-yang manipulation, Obito thought that Madara was the only one that can do that. "It was so nice of you to come here, by the way. I knew that it would have been rather annoying if I had to chase you down," said Naruto. Obito couldn't think of anything to say back, shocked beyond words that he was in this situation. His Sharingan was able to get him out of everything, but that was gone now, along with all the other powers he masked within his life. Now, I'm gonna give you a chance to tell me why Akatsuki is trying to gather all 9 Biju for. Who knows, if I agree with your plan, I might even help you, said Naruto with a shrug. It was a load of bullcrap, and he could make a fair guess that it was somehow connected to Shinju, but getting a direct answer would be good. Hidan was entirely useless as a source of information. Obito eyed Naru. The Uzumaki didn't seem like the type to sacrifice his life for someone else's dream, but it didn't seem like he had anything to lose. He could already feel his body shutting down from being in this place. His replacement arm was feeling like it was going to fall off in time now. It was just a matter of which version of the plan to tell the blonde to get his cooperation. Obito knew that Naruto life in Konoha hadn't been easy. It might be, well, interesting in getting his revenge against the village. Deeming that the same plan that was told to Konan and Nagato would be successful, he told him that version. Naruto listened as Obito revealed a plan that using all 9 Bijuu's power can create a super technique that would devastate every nation if they try to start a war. Honestly, that plan had so much amount of hole in it, it was ridiculous. I see. So you have no intention of recreating the Jubi and cause the end of the world or something like that? Obito blinked. It shouldn't be possible for the blonde to know about the Jubi. In case you're wondering, the 9-tailed furball gets talkative when he's pissed off, as he gave the impression that he was on poor terms with Bijuu that was supposed to be sealed within him. Well, that would explain Obito thought, even while Seal Kaibu was being a problem to the Eye of the Moon plan. Now, if you'll be so kind to tell me the real plan, said Naruto. Having nothing to lose, Obito relented, as he hoped that Uzumaki would see the world for what it really is. Just pain and suffering, and will go along with him and Madara's plan. Fine, I intended to use Akatsuki to remake the Jubi and become a Shinjuki. With the power this would grant me, I would project my Sharingan onto the moon and use the infinite Tsukiyomi to cast a worldwide Genjutsu. To create a perfect world, there will be no wars and no one has to suffer. Naruto raised the eyebrow at the plan. It sounded like something a man that had nothing to live for would do. And only a Uchiha could use the Tsukiyomi as far as he knew, which could only mean that Tobi was a Uchiha. Not all that really important. Aside from that, you have to have at least a Rinnegan to have the Jubi being sealed inside of you to control the power, right? And you just came up with this plan out of the blue one day, after realizing that life was hard, Naruto asked. Obito glared angrily, refusing to say another word. The Kyuubi Jinchuriki only say that he will go along with the plan, to know what the plan really was. Well, I suppose you won't tell me anything anymore. I suppose I'll just have to kill you. But first I got something you really need to see. As Naruto made a gesture behind him, Obito was shocked as a red head with 9 tails walked through the door. It didn't take him long to figure out that this woman was the Kyuubi. It would certainly explain why she was barely sighted if she could take human form. Zana, I would like to introduce you to the idiot that wanted to use you in his crazy plan to enslave the world. As he gestured towards the still stunned Obito. So I heard, she said in a cold tone. She would enjoy watching this worm that tried to use her die. But I saw you get sealed. I made sure that you were sealed, said Obito, weakly, as he saw his plans crumbling right in front of him. No one ever thought that a Bijuu could change its form. So that was your doing, was it? I always wonder how the Uchiha clan became so corrupt so quickly, she said in anger as she realized. It infuriated her to realize that someone had did this to make her come to Konoha so she would be sealed. The fact that it turned out to her benefit in the end was the only reason why she did not obliterate the worm right away. And the fact that she really couldn't go in that zone that Naruto set up. It couldn't harm her, but she couldn't remain solid in there either. Huh. I guess even old man Madara didn't know much as he thought he did. Obito said that chuckle, as he resigned himself at this point. Brain, I'm sorry. I failed. This world will stay hell, and I won't be able to bring you back. He didn't care who would hear him anymore, as he realized everything was messed up. He could find no way to escape with his chakra blocked off so completely, as Obito knew that he couldn't overcome the Uzumaki with just strength of his muscles if he stepped inside of here, and not to mention he had one arm. Both Zan and Naruto quirked the eyebrow when his arm flapped to the ground that splash, as it couldn't maintain anymore. It was a very pale green color. They were also thinking over the names that the soon-to-be dead man had given. Madara was easily recognizable, so he must have something to do with this. Probably he was the one that created the plan. It seems like he somehow survived his battle with Hoshirama and lived for a very long time. But for Naruto, Rin, that name, Kakashi had told him and Sakura about his teammate, Obito Uchiha, that had died protecting the both of them on a mission. Kakashi had told him the story after Naruto had killed Sasuke, as he wanted him to know that he could relate, having a teammate being killed, even if the situation was different. So you survived that mission and Madara took you as a student, Obito. Obito simply nodded. He started to lose the feel in his body due to lack of chakra. I was supposed to finish what he started and eventually revive him, but I suppose the both of us will remain nothing but memories. Well, you never know when someone's gonna turn up with plans of their own and screw up everything for you. As Naruto was looking at the both of them, him and Hidan, as he wondered what will happen if someone died from having their body starved of chakra, as he kept the eye on Hidan as well. Why did you unseal Kyuubi anyway, Obito asked, curious why his plan failed. Because I love her, said Naruto, as he held one of Zana's hands. Obito simply nodded, as he didn't want to understand how the hell that happened. I see. The Eye of Moon plan was born out of hatred for the world, so it's only fitting that something like that put an end to it. After saying that, Obito collapsed to the ground, no longer able to feel his body, as his vision was already growing dark. I may have failed to create a perfect world, but maybe I can see her one last time, he said, as his life slipped away from him. Naruto stared at the body, the dead body of Obito Uchiha, wondering what he should do now. Zana had already gone back upstairs, as Naruto found himself feeling pity for the man. Well, he could understand feeling pain over the girl that you love, but honestly, he felt like he'd done the man a favor by killing him. An illusion of her would never measure up to the real thing. At least now he could join her in death. He wasn't going to tell anyone that Obito was alive all this time. There was no point of giving Kakashi so much grief. But trying to enslave the world, that was a really idiotic plan. Obito's Sharingan, which had changed into the Mangeto as soon as the chakra suppression was dropped, he would likely destroy. The damn thing was dangerous as hell, and he had no real use for it. Trying to implant it into his own skull, despite the awesome powers it gave, would be quite stupid. How would he explain why he had a Mangeto Sharingan? And why exactly did it look like Kakashi's? As Kakashi told Naruto and Sakura that he had the Mangeto Sharingan, and he could make dimensional whirlpools. Probably the same thing that Obito had. Well, it was his eye. That is why he became intangible. That strange harm, however, it intrigued him. Since he couldn't ask Nana to examine it, he would have to do some trial and error tests. Wait, am I becoming like Orochimaru, Naruto thought? Nah, he shrugged it off. As long as he did not kidnap children and place safety on them, he was fine. Time skip. As Naruto was standing in a field that was filled with Harushi and kunais, he's been practicing the thing the entire damn morning, and he was still not getting anywhere closer. He could use the technique just fine and he could lock onto a particular kunai, but combat worthy? Well, he wasn't anywhere close. For one thing, it took him too long to lock onto one of them, and also he felt disoriented afterwards. Slowly, he got more familiar with the teleportation to lessen the disorientation. He could only imagine how much practice the old man went through with this scrap to get nicknamed Yellow Flash. Granted, Naruto thought that it was a pretty lame name, but having the ability to teleport around was pretty awesome. Unfortunately, a side effect of him being 6'7", he couldn't move as fast as a smaller person would, and its chakra control was still needing work. Maybe one day after he was bored out of his mind, being an immortal being, sitting somewhere, he would put in a decade or two of chakra training. Then maybe he could use a technique that was called subtle. That was if he didn't find some alternative before that. Naruto wasn't even going to consider the possibility of failing to become immortal. He felt more certain that he could do it, especially that he would now have proof that immortality was certain within Hidan. As he gathered up all the kunais, he did not fail, he was just leaving it till a later time. And he didn't really like the kunais either, as they were just so tiny, and he thought of them as a sharpened gardening tool ever since he learned of their original purpose. Decided to work on something else. As he held his hand and created a Rasengan, it was shiny. He avoided using technique because of a side effect of his training with his massive chakra reserve increase. Over the 3-year training trip, the Rasengan was like a miniature sun within his hand. The one time he slammed it into something, fortunately he made a clone do it. It exploded rather violently. It would screw him up as much as the guy got hit by it. Well, not as badly, he was pretty sturdy after all, but he wouldn't be getting out of it unscathed. As it was now, he might as well stick to punching things. He focused most of his time on his training trip to, well, finding different seals, and also his end goal of being immortal and becoming powerful enough so Zana will marry him. But except for increasing his own chakra capacity, he hadn't made a lot of progress on that front. And honestly, that chakra capacity was a big help in thus increasing his healing factor. And now he was stumped. A man could only have so much, well, idea until he get finally stumped. He couldn't wait to run some more Akatsuki members. So far, they had always been freaked with some special abilities. If he was lucky, he'd run into someone that gave him ultimate power, show him a way to do it somehow, and made him become immortal. He could hope, but he doubted it would be that simple. Well, experimenting on Hidan had already gave him some good ideas. He really struck gold with that one. As he looked towards the Rasengan in his hand same way, as his old man was working on trying to add an element to the Rasengan, but he died before he could do it. Adding his wind into the Rasengan would be quite stupid. The Rasengan was already deadly enough. Imagine putting his wind into it that was unstable. So, water then. Time skip. Several hours later, Naruto and 4 clones were doing their last attempt at creating some kind of water-infused Rasengan. The original was holding up the Rasengan while 3 of his clones pushed the water against it. After all, the Rasengan was pushing everything away, so the clones were adding water by fusing in it. The final clone was fused in the water and pushed it down deep. As Naruto discarded his coat, as a sweat ran down his forehead, as the clones were pumping the water into it and trying to fuse it and keep it stable. He was maintaining the Rasengan while the 3 clones were maintaining the water pressure, while last clone was adding water more and more. Naruto wasn't sure how much water was compacted in his spear by now, but he knew it was a lot. By the time that the 4th clone had stopped adding water, the spear was spinning with terrible speed. Naruto tried to slow it down, but the entire thing went into an uncontrollable chain of reaction. He had to slow it down before he took away the pressure. He also didn't just want to dispel the Rasengan sitting inside the water dome. The last time he did that, the water exploded to where no pressure was being, well, pushed, and that was his hands. It was a good thing that he tried that with a small amount of water, or yeah, his hand would be screwed. But the thing was not slowing down at all. He gathered a massive amount of chocolate with his left hand as he glanced towards the clone beside him. The clone nodded as he prepared to stop exerting pressure. The moment the clone stopped, Naruto slammed his hand against the water. The repelling chakra started to destabilize the Rasengan and calm it. As Naruto released it, as it was blasted away, as it spit out dense water that were small like needles everywhere. When it finally slammed into a tree, the thing exploded. All the water that was compact exploding outwards. Naruto quickly raised his arms to shield his face as he was struck by tiny water needles the rest of his body. He was lucky to activate his iron body technique, so technically he made some progress in ninjutsu, but not the one he was going for. But despite the velocity of how strong his body was now, he was still hurt, as he had small cuts everywhere, a lot of them that leaked a lot of blood as he collapsed down into the water that was on the ground already, as his healing factor was struggling to fix him up, as the water started to turn blood red. At the edge of a clearing, all the trees around started to collapse as their trunks were torn open by hundreds of water needles, thousands. As Naruto felt himself losing consciousness, he really did a number on himself. Time skip. What the hell were you thinking, Tsunade yelled, as Naruto was currently lying in the hospital bed after his near brush with death. The destruction had caused Anvu to come and check it out. When they found him just lying there, seals were being activated all over his body. His mystical palm technique seals were going off to heal him. If it wasn't for that, he might have bled out. I was trying to see if I could add my water element to the Rasengan, said Naruto with a shrug. He honestly didn't see what the big deal was. He was alive, wasn't he? Okay, he was in healing coma for about 5 hours, and his chakra reserves had dipped. He only had at least Kage level worth of chakra left. What he was trying to observe, chakra intensive, and the healing was also chakra intensive as well. Without supervision? Jiraiya said as he was also there as well. Do you have any idea how dangerous something like that is? Kind of hard to miss since I'm the one that got turned into a hamburger meat. Besides, if anyone but me had been there, they would have been torn to shreds. The two of them were a bit concerned how nonchalant he was about his near death. But he was right if anyone else but him was there. But that didn't mean he was off the hook though. Or, the person would have told you what you were doing was incredibly stupid, said Jiraiya. Most of his anger was because he was truly terrified to think that Naruto would die. After seeing him torn up like that, why do you choose now of all times to try that anyway? You never showed any interest in finishing Rasengan before. Because I need some ninjutsu besides for my chains. I knew I'm easily S rank without. But I still need some more versatility. Sooner or later, someone's gonna come along that has some weird ability to neutralize my chains. Then I'm gonna be stuck with nothing but taijutsu. Even my gloves are just a poor substitute. No matter what an awesome piece of work they are. Both Sanis turned to look at each other. Tsunade nodded. Well, I got a proposition for you. It's something I've been meaning to ask for a while now. But things always came up, said Jiraiya. In other words, you got caught up in your peeping and forgot about it. Tsunade smirked a bit at that as Jiraiya faced fault. Anyway, it's about the next stage of your training with me. I thought you already taught me everything you could. I mean, you're a lesser SealMaster, but you taught me as much as you could. Jiraiya eyebrow twitched. That's some brat. Is better when it comes to Fuinjutsu. Even if it was his godson, he was proud of him for it. That was still embarrassing. There's one last thing I can teach you. Or more accurately, I can recommend you to the Toad Elders for teaching. Jiraiya said, being rather vague. Now Naruto's interest was piqued, and he made no help to hide it. What in the world could the Toads teach him that was this hype? What kind of teaching are we talking about here? Jiraiya puffed himself up as he was going to go into a long, sturdy, wonderful explanation until Senjutsu, the sage art, said Tsunade. Jiraiya deflated. She stole everything from him. Do tell, said Naruto. Jiraiya gave him a shorter explanation of Senjutsu, saying that told elders would explain more once they summoned him to Mount Miyaboku. Naruto was going to press for more details when the door was suddenly slammed open by a rather pissed off redhead. As Naruto got out of bed, in the hospital gown that he was given, as the hospital had a hard time finding one in his size. His pants was a lost cause though. He really liked those pants. Zana, it's good to see you, he said, as he saw that she was incredibly pissed off. What is that I hear about you nearly killing yourself due to training? She hadn't actually heard it from anyone. She read his thoughts when he didn't come home after training. She got worried. Well, said Naruto, scratching the back of his head and let out a nervous laugh. The two suddenly was surprised. They never saw the blonde act normal or embarrassed. And here he was being scolded for his recklessness, and that was coming out in him now. This was the first time Zana had reacted to something like this. Sure, he was never hurt this badly before, but this reaction seemed, well, extreme. Well, Tsunade and Jiraiya felt something strange, but they didn't know what it was. She was really pissed off, as Naruto could see, because she didn't bother to suppress the chakra flow to her voice box. You see, I was trying to add water to the Rasengan, and it sort of blew up on me, Naruto said, trying to make it sound like less of a big deal than it really was. And you didn't think to exercise some more caution when doing this, she said. Naruto said nothing and just shifted, awkwardly. Given that his healing factor was, well, increased, and not to mention seals, he hadn't think about adding any restraint. Man, Naruto, you got a real spitfire on your hand, and such a babe too, Jiraiya said. Quite honestly, looking at Zana. Zana turned towards the white-haired monkey in irritation. If she was in one of her better moods, she would have done something to mess with his head. But right now, she was not in a good mood, as she was pissed off, and she didn't feel like humoring a stupid human. Bam! Jiraiya didn't know what hit him as he burst right through the window. They were on the 3rd floor. As he dropped on the ground, small cuts from the broken window and a bruised back. He realized he should have kept his mouth shut, even if he had whispered. As he got the feeling that Naruto's sexy girlfriend had pulled her punch a bit. Was this attraction to redhead something that Minato passed on to his son? Jiraiya wondered. Tsunade watched her former teammate get smacked out of the window, like some misbehaving academy student, with some amount of satisfaction. Serve him right for trying to perv on Naruto girl. Right, I suppose I should do the introductions. Tsunade, this is Zana. Zana, this is Tsunade Senju, the current Hokage, said Naruto. The two women nodded toward each other, and Zana turned away in a rather dismissive gesture and turned back to Naruto. Tsunade calmed herself. She was just concerned about Naruto, so she didn't really mean that as an insult. She hoped not, as she calmed herself. Not wanting things to escalate, Naruto hugged Zana. I promise, I won't be so careless again. She instantly calmed down. She knew that he would never break a promise, and it was hard to, well, stay angry at him when he hugged her like that. Infuriating blonde idiot, she thought to herself. Tsunade couldn't help but smile. It was so nice seeing her acting so normal, around the girl that he loved. Hey, wanna have sex in the hospital break room, said Naruto. Tsunade grind her teeth together. How dare the bastard even suggest something like that? I love to, but if any of them interrupt us, I want you to put them in chains and make them watch. Tsunade blinked. What the hell kind of woman was this? And forced their legs apart so I can mock them about how wet it makes them. Tsunade realized that so many things about Naruto made sense now. If this was what he was exposed to since he was 10, then she understand. What if it's Ino or Sakura, said Naruto? Then I will permit them to join if Sakura go down on you and Ino go down on me, said Zana. Tsunade realized she couldn't deal with this shit right now. She just walked out. As she rubbed her forehead, there was just too much pervert in Konoha. She couldn't handle that right now. Time skip. Several hours later, the both of them lie in each other's arms, both Naruto and Zana, having returned to the apartment after their fun in the hospital break room. Naruto was asleep, but Zana was not. She was afraid. Afraid of losing him as she saw his memories earlier today. He was unconscious, so they were all jumbled up. All she saw was him being torn to pieces. It was so close, all it would have taken was a little more damage, and he would have died, and left her all alone. The thought of that seemed more terrible than anything else that she could ever imagine. If it was in her power, she would have kept him young forever. She would have asked him to seal her back inside himself, so that she could do it, but she could not. She had made change to his body, like making him this big, but that was just minor change. Trying to keep him from aging was another matter entirely, as she felt no pride in her power. She had so much power, but she couldn't use it for what she wanted. Its time was already so short, and the idiot was going out of his way to put himself in risk. First his reckless attempts of creating that powerful ninjutsu, and now senjutsu training. As she knew about senjutsu training, after all, many had been turned into stone after they failed. The sage was not a real sage when it comes to other people that perform senjutsu. After all, he never actually learned the concept fully of senjutsu. But after his time, there came one person that learned to manage and balance the power of senjutsu. Senju Hoshirama was the most recent human sage that she knew of, in power by natural energy, with the concept of his Mokidan power. That man might have been able to fight against her on even footing for a while, before he exhausts himself. It was just a guess though, since she never actually saw him fight, only seeing the valley that him and Madara carved out with their battle. It was unlikely that he could sustain it for more than a minute though, she thought. Madara used his giant Susanoo in order to escape her, and that was impressive. Even as much as she hated the man, that was impressive. Eventually word of senjutsu had reached her, and she was curious. Her attempts of learning it, however, only served to prove impossible. The natural energy of the world avoided her like a plague. It showed her how unnatural her existence was. And now she felt ashamed for wiping out the wolf clan after that. A wolf tribe, as they hadn't exactly run her out after she tried to learn it. But after feeling so angry, so infused with rage, that everything was avoiding her, nature itself, see how unnatural her power was. They were there and she ended up lost in rage. That event was what showed her that she needed to learn to control her anger even better, as she had slaughtered them. Naruto seemed excited to learn senjutsu. She wouldn't stop him, but she told me everything she knew about it, trying to give him a better chance to learn it. As she was still troubled, with the Toad Elder sent a message to Konoha that Naruto was now a stone after a few weeks' time. It made her worry. The thought of it was unbearable as she clenched her eyes tightly. What's wrong? Asked a confused Naruto who was just waking up. Zana opened her eyes to realize she was scraping him with her claws, unknowingly. She even cut him as she saw a small amount of blood. She quickly jerked her hand away, fearing that he might just die in her. That thought came to her head despite knowing that he wouldn't just die like that. What's wrong, love? Why are you crying? Naruto asked. He asked in alarm, noticing the tear streaks on her face, forgetting that she just stabbed him. In all the years that he knew her for, she never showed weakness before. So to see her crying, waking up to see her crying, that was alarming. She wiped at her face with her hand, knowing in shock that she was indeed crying. She had never cried before, but then again, she never had anything to cry about before. Eternal life may be at dull at times, but this was the first time that she would have something truly important to her to lose. Your injury today and the rest of senjutsu has made it very obvious how fragile you are, she said sadly. Don't worry, I'll be more careful from now on, and I'll master the senjutsu thing for sure. I'm not gonna get myself killed. Naruto's shoulder as he held her closer. Even if you become a sage, you will still be mortal, and I will still lose you, she said, as she leaned her forehead on his chest, as she wondered if it would have been best just to leave after she was released from the seal. But his interest caught on to her, and everything went by so quickly, and now she found herself falling for the blonde, and now she thought about the possibility of losing him. It was just so painful. She knew that his death would destroy all contentment, all happiness that she has gotten so far. How could she even live after that? The few things that she enjoyed would no longer interest her, because he will no longer be there to share it with her. Poking fun at mortals wouldn't be fun anymore, because he wouldn't be there. I'll never die. No matter what I have to do, I'll become immortal. And we will spend eternity together. That's a promise, he said. He would not give in to doubt, not when he was so close he could practically taste it. She looked at him as she saw that determination, that unwavering belief. Maybe he would truly find a way to do it. She could only hope. It wasn't like she had any choice in the matter anyway. This was simply one of those things she had no power over. As she tried her best to just shake off that mood. An hour later she was asleep, and Naruto was not. Seeing her in tears, it brought to the surface that his death would hurt her, and it was a problem now. He couldn't afford to stay mortal, and he needed to get stronger. His mortality was hurting her. He will find a way no matter what it takes, even if he had to burn literal hell and heaven itself. To get what he wants, he will achieve it no matter what. Time skip. Naruto looked at the arm that Obito left behind. He knew there was something special about this arm. It was a pale green, it was actually practically white, and had fallen off when it was starved of chakra. He decided to add chakra and see what happens. That would probably tell him something, at least. He reached for the arm, but he stopped. Maybe it would be better to cut off a small part and have a clone do what he thought. After all, this was a complete different concept to him. He never practiced anything with this substance before. He created a clone. As he stepped away, the clone cut a piece of the arm with a knife. As Naruto saw a bonsai sprout from his skin. What the hell? It was a small tree. The only one capable of doing something like that was the first, and Obito was definitely not the first Hokage. Naruto was sure that Obito didn't rob the first Hokage grave and took the man's arm and placed on his. For one thing, that arm would have been skeleton by now, and he couldn't take a tissue and make it analyze. After all, they would want to know how he got such a thing. Considering that the arm didn't bleed, and it was chakra reliant, he felt like it was artificially created. That seemed like the most likely possibility. Creating a functional limb for Senju Hoshirama tissue was far beyond what he could do though. But Obito did say that Madara took him in, so the Uchiha was probably the culprit. There was no information about him having that ability, so he probably learned after going underground. He sealed the arm into a scroll for safekeeping and to prevent decay. He wasn't sure why the first Hokage's cells were used. Maybe Madara tried to steal a first Hokage in Mokiton or something like that. As he buried himself for not asking Obito that question before killing him. Actually, there had been a lot of questions he could have asked. There was no guarantee that Obito would answer them, but there was a possibility that he would. But now that thought was useless because it wasn't like he could bring the man back. Hidan was watching Naruto deep in thought. As Hidan realized that Akatsuki was well misinformed, Tobi, being someone else called Obito, and said that he was a student of Madara. Hidan wasn't the smartest person, but even he knew who Uchiha Madara was. The biggest shock, however, was that Kaibi was walking around in human form. Yes, that shocked him to his very core. The Akatsuki was well misinformed, but on the other hand, Naruto did not know about the leader. Obito had made no mention of the Rinnegan, and Hidan wouldn't tell the blonde just out of spite. Hidan was used to pain, so Uzumaki couldn't interrogate him for it, and he was used to torture, so yeah. He did most painful things to himself, and Uzumaki wasn't an expert in torture. Alright Hidan, I'm gonna remove the gag. Hidan was snapped from his thoughts, and we're gonna have a short little conversation. As Hidan narrowed his eyes at the blonde. Earlier he saw the blonde destroy the two Sharingan eyes. From the way the blonde was talking, he seemed like he wanted to get stronger. So destroying two powerful things like that, it was quite, well, even on Hidan terms, stupid. But he didn't know what the blonde was planning, or what the hell he was even doing. Hidan said nothing as his gag was removed. I'm gonna be leaving for a while. I don't know how long. Probably a few weeks or months. Which is why I have an offer for you. What kind of offer could a heretic like you have that I would possibly be interested in? I can put a seal on you that will keep you unconscious for all the time I have gone, so that you won't spend the entire time just chained up to a table doing nothing. As if I have anything to do otherwise, Hidan said. True enough, but I'm leaving this one up to you. Either you stay a week while you train here, or I knock you out, but you're staying on the table. You're a goddamn bastard, you know that, Uzumaki. You're the bad guy here, being the mass murderer and all. So I think I'm actually being nice, giving you a choice. If you were so nice, then you would be keeping me in your basement and experimenting on me, you bastard. And if you have a seal that can keep me knocked out, why didn't you use it before then keep me conscious? Well, to answer in order, I'm experimenting on you because I want to figure out how to become immortal. And you're such a bad guy that I don't really feel guilty about doing it. As for the seal, well, I only figured it out when Obito activated the trap. So I couldn't put it on in the first place anyway. After having Hidan that trap, yes, he could only be knocked out when his chakra was suppressed completely. He was technically dead, but once the chakra started to lift and his chakra started to reform, he became reactive. Hidan glared at the blonde, as he thought his options over. It would be boring as hell to stay a week, not knowing when the asshole will come back. It was boring either way though. The choice seemed obvious, but Hidan saw opportunity here. Escape was impossible, as long as Uzumaki came in every time. But if he was gone for a long time, screw you, Uzumaki. Just get the hell out of here and leave me alone. Suit yourself, said Naruto with a shrug, as he left. He grabbed the miniature tree. He was going to give it to Snad as a present, a bonsai tree that was cut off from a cell of her grandfather's arm that was created artificially. Well, he found that hilarious as he made his way. After all, it was a good looking tree. But guys, the ends episode right here. If you want the next part, this honors to do, like, subscribe, comment down below, and turn on that bell notification to stay posted. But I'm out for now. See you guys soon. Peace.